The 41st chapter, by the way, this 41st chapter is like a pivotal, a foundational, actually those are the words, the beginning, the core, and the root of all service, of all divine service. This is it. Our kids in school, they would learn it by heart, this chapter, that it would just be in their heads, that they could drill it in the messages that we learn over here from a young age. And even now that they're married with kids, they still remember it. I'll tell you, be honest, I don't know it by heart. My kids did me. I wasn't trained that way. In any case, beautiful. Let's recount yesterday a beautiful thought, a meditation, a general meditation. Today we're going to go into some specific meditations. Just a few as an example of what it means to have kavanah, intent, what it means to have a sense of love and awe/fear of God in doing the good that we do. Why do you need to have that? Because if you want an eternity to the good that you do, if you want that it should actually, as we'll learn, has even an effect on us on some level, a palpable effect, as we will learn today, more specifically, then we need some mindfulness. Otherwise, there is an effect, but it's not something that we would note. It would not be something that we would be aware of. But of course there's an effect, because a mitzvah is a divine will that God wants us to fulfill. So even if we do it just on autopilot, even if we do it just as an action without any mindfulness or feeling, there's still a bond, but it doesn't really change things in a real way. So what was yesterday we said? God is the creator. On his business card, everybody has a business card of, what's me? So you might think, well, God, creator, what greater thing could there be than God as being the creator of, all of the spiritual worlds and of this physical world? But that's not really his business card. That's not really what he wants. What he wants ultimately, even though he is the creator, and he a creator, transcendent and immanent at the same time, which that's something we can't really fathom, because either you're here or you're not here, so to speak. Either you're like aloof and beyond, or you're transcendent, or you're immanent and you're engaged. You're not engaged and transcendent at the same time. So we don't know what that means exactly, but God is that way. So he fills the world and transcends the world. He has dominion over the entirety of creation. But that's not what he's concerned with, and that's what he cares about. What he cares about is that his kingship, and we'll get to the concept of what that means, the word kingship. Today that's not a very positive term, especially with, some royal families, not so positive, but we'll have a better understanding on how kingship is really a very powerful and very positive and a healthy thing. We'll get into more details on that, not so much today, a little bit. Kingship, royalty, over the entirety of creation, the Jewish people, that they should accept him as their king. But more specifically, me as an individual, that I should accept God as my king. And that's why I say, the Talmud says, we're obligated to say that the world was created for me. In other words, what I do is so important to God that the world was created just for me, and the next thing that I will do, say, or think, that's how important it is. But I accept that kingship of God over me, and therefore I'm ready to serve whatever it is. Whether it's a large thing that makes me, makes me feel good, or it's a small, minor thing, whatever it is, I'm here to serve. Like a real good, relationship between husband and wife. Honey, whatever it is, you want the garbage out, you do it you know, with a smile. Whether it's a large, beautiful, whatever it is, evening out or whatever it is, that's whatever it is. Service, I'm here. Service with a smile. Now, Talit then said that this is a meditation to have, and it's actually a very powerful idea, that behold that God stands over the individual. The whole world is full of his glory. But yet, what he's looking at is at me specifically. Not in a punishing way. Not in a way to make me feel bad. No. But the presence of God as a king over me in order to allow me to reveal my true capabilities, my true nature. That's it. And therefore, before you do anything, if you meditate upon that for a moment, just close your eyes for a moment and just think that God is the creator of all of heaven and earth, everything. And he puts that all aside, and he stands upon me and gazes at me and knows exactly where I'm at, knows exactly what I'm capable of. So I can't fool. I can fool myself, but that's fooling a fool. I can't fool God. He knows. And therefore, if he's really looking at me in the presence of God, looking at me that, hey, you're capable. You could do this. Whatever this moment is that he's looking at, you could do it. You could achieve what you need to achieve. You could accomplish what you need to accomplish. You could do it. We don't believe in ourselves that we could. But God is looking at it and he's scrutinizing us in such a way and giving us the power that we can achieve what we need to achieve in that particular moment. When we can do that at any given moment, think about any situation that you're in. And when you feel, one of the things I do is I run a drug crisis center, Chabad Lifeline, here in Montreal. And something we'll talk about perhaps another day at greater length. But you know what the disease of addiction is? The disease of being alone. When you feel that you're alone, then the world starts to cave in. When you feel that there's another human being there with you that loves you and cares for you, boy, does that give you a boost. We all know that, right? And they're there, physically there in front of you in a loving way, giving you that boost. Is that amazing? So you can imagine God's doing that for us at all times, any given moment, that we meditate upon that reality. I mean, it's the truth whether we meditate upon it or not. That's the reality. But if we meditate upon it, boy, will that change my way I think, the way I talk, and the way I act. And that is the point over here. I mean, this is what we spoke about yesterday. Okay? Now, there are specific mitzvahs that there can be specific meditations that we can have and that we reflect upon. And the reflection doesn't have to be a lengthy one. Obviously, the lengthier it is, the more it will seep into us, and more it will become a part of us, and more it'll become our reality. Let's face it, when someone is in the room that we adore, we act differently. But God, we don't sense him being in the room, and therefore we act differently. And that's why we need to meditate upon it. We need to think about it in order that it becomes some kind of reality that penetrates over time. I'm not gonna, this doesn't happen just like that. But over time, that we will be able to truly sense the presence of God. And most importantly, when we're going through a difficult time or a challenge, or, do I go right or left in my life? And it could be just a simple thing of a relationship with another loved one. Which path am I taking? What should I respond right now? If you have the presence of God in that moment, you know what the likelihood of you doing the right thing is much greater than if all you do is feel your own feelings. All you do is feel, oh, I'm hurt in this moment. I feel upset in this moment. I feel angry in this moment. Well, obviously the presence of God isn't there, and whatever you're going to respond probably will not be the healthiest, the best way to go. But if you take that deep breath and you think for a moment and meditate God's presence, what a gift we have that we can do that. And that will help us and guide us as a general principle in any thing that we do, and in particular when we're going to do a mitzvah. So now we're doing a mitzvah. We're learning Torah. So what should you think? So the Alter Rebbe says that when we are learning right now, first of all, we need to know that we're learning that which is God's will. And God's will and wisdom is enclosed in the very letters of the Torah. Torah doesn't mean the 5 books of Moses merely. It means the Tanya that we're learning right now. So the very letters of Torah that a person utters is divine wisdom. And when you comprehend it, so if you're understanding it right now, you're comprehending it, God's will. So that is something to think about, right? That his will is literally in the ink and the parchment, in the understanding of the teachings. It's there. And therefore, before we start learning, maybe take a good moment now to just take a moment that we should ponder that the Ein Sof means the limitlessness of God's light. The divine will is vested in the very letters and the very wisdom that we are about to study. That is kavanah. That's intent. That's creating a bond with God through the act that we're engaged in right now, the study of Torah. So just think about that for a moment. That's a very powerful idea. Now, he gives some other mitzvahs that are men-related mitzvahs, tzitzis and tefillin, that the divine will is clothed in the very tzitzis, the four-cornered garment that has fringes on them, and tefillin phylacteries, and therefore being God's will that Jewish men should wear them. And through the recitation, through the act of wearing the mitzvah, we draw upon ourselves the light of God over our divine soul, and engage also our physical reality, our body, an animal soul that's also absorbed and nullified in the divine light of God. So when you are putting on the talis, the tzitzis, the tefillin, were being absorbed literally in the light of God, nullified to it and one with it. Specifically tefillin, a person should intend that tefillin has 4 boxes on the head, on the head tefillin, that represent 4 different passages that are there: wisdom and understanding, chachma and bina of the divine soul, that it should be absorbed in the wisdom and understanding of God. And in those, and 2 of the passages, Kadesh Li and Vahaya Kiviyecha, those are 2 of the passages that are there, represent that Chachma and Bina of the divine, the wisdom and understanding of the divine, that when we put on tefillin, we're actually absorbed in that divine light. Similarly, we also have what's called das, which is the connection of the intelligence that we have to the emotions of love and fear and awe. Chesed and Gvura, meaning Das is the awareness that we have that we can bind ourselves also not just intellectually with God, and that we're absorbed with our intelligence in the divine intelligence through the act of putting on this tefillin. Likewise, the faculty of das is that we are, which is the front lobe of the brain, by the way, is connecting to our emotions, and our emotions should also be bound up with the divine through das. That's included in das, actually. And that is the passages of the Shema and V'hayim Shemo, the second paragraph. And this is the basic idea that the Code of Jewish Law tells us that when you put on tefillin, you're actually, it's called Shivat Alev HaMoyach. The intent should be that your heart and your mind are being subservient, being absorbed in the divine light of God. So your intelligence and emotions are being absorbed in the divine light of God. And actually what it helps then is, we all know one thing and feel often something else. We don't always know, and what we know, that's what we feel. We know something is right, but our heart's not really there, right? So tefillin helps to unify the two, that they come together. In other words, that the mind and the heart should work in unison. They shouldn't be going in two different directions. And then the idea of putting on a talis, the Alter Rebbe says, is drawing upon you is the transcendent light of God that should be encompassing you, and that therefore you are ready to be encompassed by the divine kingdom. And in other words, it's like a yoke that you're putting upon yourself, accepting the yoke of God's rulership as a king. And that we do that with conscious thought and rational volition. Submission. I'm ready to submit. And the Zohar gives a beautiful metaphor for this, like a ox or a cow that submits itself to the yoke in order that it should now be useful to be able to plow the field. Right? If you don't have a yoke on the ox, it's not going to plow the field. It's going to run amok and do what it wants. I don't run amok, but at least go do what it wants, right? So likewise, I have an animal soul. It's going to do what it wants, which is not going to submit itself to a higher authority, to the kingship of God, that there is God in my life. I'm going to do whatever I want, not what God needs from me and what God wants from me. But if I put the yoke upon me, right, of the divine kingdom, that God is the ruler and he has dominion over the entire world, and me too, that I'm now submitting. I have to submit. Everything else is submitted to God, right? But me, I have free choice, so I have to submit myself. And that submission is the idea of a talis, that you have this yoke of heaven upon you, that you're submitting yourself and ready to serve what the master wants. And this is the idea now of what it means, the fear of God. Fear of God means submission here. It means that I'm ready to serve as a servant. A servant submits themselves to the master to do what the master needs from them and wants from them. And this is the concept over here. And this is what it means to serve God. B'avadatem es Hashem Elokeichem, serving God. Now, in conclusion, the Alter Rebbe says, and we're going to get more into this, this is the beginning level, but there's another kind of devotion to God, and that is of a child to a parent. Not as a servant to a master, not as a servant to the king, but as a child to the parent. And the Alter Rebbe concludes today, and we will continue with this thought tomorrow, is that child to the parent is devotion through love. Because that's what a child, ultimately should be. Shouldn't, be there for their parent out of fear, even though there is that concept. But the primary concept of a child and relationship to the parent is out of love. And as we mentioned before, as we mentioned many times, that, in order that the mitzvah that we do and the good that we do actually ascends on high and has eternal effect on me and the world, it will only be if I have both fear/awe and love. I need both of these things. If I only have one and not the other, it's not sufficient. Some people are much more loving in nature, and they only have the sense of love, but they don't have the sense of fear. Fear meaning not punishment, but presence of God. Right? Presence of God that you're accepting upon yourself. You're submitting yourself as a servant to a master. We need that and love at the same time. Why do we need both? We're going to get into more of this as we move along. But one is not sufficient, just like a bird cannot fly if it only has one wing. So we can't fly in our mitzvah, in our good that we do, if we only have one way of serving. By nature, by the way, we are one or the other more. Either we're more love-oriented kind of people and we do it out of love, and some people are just more fear-based. Fear-based, again, not in a negative way, in a very positive way. Service. I'm here to serve. I'm a servant, right? I do that with, sometimes I do that, with my wife. What do you need from me? I'm there for you. Whatever it is, as I'm here to serve. And I've got to do that at the same time with a love that's imbued with that. But if I just have the love, right, and not the sense of servitude, then what happens is it becomes all about me, because love is about me. Service is about you. And therefore, that's why it's the first thing that we need is the submission, service, not love. Love is not the first thing that comes in divine service. And actually, in marriage, it's not the first thing. In any human relationship, it's not the first thing. And that's a big mistake that the world is making, that they don't get. I need to respect you before I love you. If I don't respect you, my love is going to be abusive in the end. But if I respect you first, which is fear, by the way, the concept, it's on the side of fear, right? Which means making space for you, as fear is that creates a distance, right? Respect is the outer expression of fear. Fear meaning not wanting to disconnect from you. Therefore, I respect you, make space for you. That's the first thing in any relationship. Then love can flourish. Ultimately, we need both, no doubt. And we're going to learn a lot about this in these chapters 41, where we are now through 50. Learn all the different elements of love and awe and slash fear and respect in our relationship with God, which reflects itself in our human relationships, which is very important to appreciate that it starts with our relationship with God, but then will carry over into every relationship. So if we can have this as a healthy relationship, then we will be able to, with God, then we'll be able to have a healthy relationship with others. That is a very powerful, and that's why the Alter Rebbe begins this chapter and says that this is the beginning, the core, and the root of all divine service is the idea of fear/awe/respect, which here it means submission as a servant to the king, to the master. I said a lot there. Oh my gosh. Any questions, any comments?
You said a lot there, Rabbi.
Yes, I know. I hope it wasn't too much.
Yeah.
I hope it wasn't.
No. But yes, you're right about that. There's a lot of people that, don't have respect for each other, and that might be also, a connection that they lack and who knows, it might be also with God. But when you do have that respect for God, you do have respect for individuals more than not. Like,
Exactly. That's why it's so important, of starting our of recognizing that we're in a relationship with God. God is not just there as my sugar daddy. He's not just there because, after all, he is there. So, I can't run away from that. Um, but we need to think about it in relationship terms, and this is what the Alter Rebbe is giving us the opportunity. Um, John, just give me 1 second, and please voice your. Tim is just asking. Yeah, there's different customs on Chol Hamoed. We're now in the intermediary days of Pesach, and the Chabad custom is we don't wear tefillin. The mystical custom is we don't wear tefillin in these intermediary days. Okay, others do have a custom, but I guess Tim, you're a Chabadnik. John, go ahead.
Yes, I have what you could call a technical question. And it's about the Talit versus tefillin as the physical mitzvot, and what I should draw from the specific question is that if we juxtapose the notion of Malchut with the notion of the Shekhinah.
Right.
I realize those are from two different conversational systems. I mean, talking about Malchut is the Adam Kadmon diagram, and talking about Shekhinah is a more general notion. But so, but on a physical level, my intuition or my experience is that the tefillin is more evocative of Malchut, as in it's restrictive. It's if you focus on whether it's comfortable or not, it's uncomfortable. Makes you pay attention that you're not wearing normal
Right.
garb.
Right.
Whereas the Talit, on the other hand, is comforting. It's there's a sense of an enveloping presence. Certainly, if you pull it over your head, those sorts of things. But even just sitting on your shoulders, there's a sense of being held, which intuitively makes me feel about the indwelling, the Shekhinah. So I was,
Right.
I'm just talking about my own personal experience. And I was wondering if you can tie that to
Sure.
Chabad thinking.
Good. A very good question, John. Thank you. So it's interesting. The physical reality of a talis or a talit, depending on how you pronounce, is encompassing of the person. And some people wear these like almost like scarves talit, and they're not kosher. You know why? Because it needs to encompass most of the body of the person. So it is the idea of the transcendent light that is encompassing the individual, and therefore it's about, it ties in with this idea of submission to something that is greater than ourselves. That's the idea of Talit. And that's why Talit comes on first, and then comes Tefillin. Tefillin is more pnimiyut, is more internalized, right? It is on your head, it's on your arm against your heart, because it's aiming for the mind and the heart of the individual to bind the two together, that they should be, and that's what the physical, there's a physical binding of when you're putting on tefillin, right? Because it is to internalize the divine intelligence into my intelligence, and ultimately that should lead through das to connect to the emotions of my emotions, that they are also bound up as a result. So that's more internalized. Therefore, there's the physical binding that we're trying to harness and bind our minds and our heart in divine service, as opposed to the talis, which is encompassing the person. That's why it goes over the head. The talis, because it's to encompass the individual. So first you have the encompassing light of God, and then you have the indwelling and permeating light of God. That's the way it would be understood. Thank you, John. So
Interesting.
Yeah, look, I just want to get to a few other things here. Well, perhaps we can continue that conversation, but I have a bunch of questions here that I really need to also get to. So give me a moment, John. Denise, is the same for women lighting Shabbat candles. If women are on our higher spiritual level, is there any difference between our mitzvahs and the fear and awe than men? So thank you, Denise, or Davida, to ask that question. First of all, men have more mitzvahs. One of the reasons, and I'm not going to get into the distinction between men and women over here because that's a lengthy conversation that we will get into, or we have, and we will get more into, is that men need more mitzvahs to bring the same awe and love of God that women have much more instinctually available for them in their soul. So they don't need as many mitzvahs to do that. They do have Shabbos candles and others, and the Shabbos candles, the meditation there is about the divine light of God that you're introducing into the home, and creating that peace in your home. A reminder for everybody that if you have a question on Facebook, to put 2 question marks beforehand. What can a senior citizen do in order to not be lonely, Susan asks. Oh, that's a good one. Well, just what we spoke about is really, there's the human element and there is the divine element. The human element, there's so many things, people, if they're part of a community, people should call those people so they shouldn't feel alone. They shouldn't feel alone if they're part of a community. And if you know somebody that's alone, give them a call. I know that's something I need to do more often. I do it, but I know that whenever I do, boy, do people appreciate it, and I need to do more of it. I know my day is full, and sometimes I don't get to do all the things I would like to do. But here we're talking about that we're given a way that we shouldn't feel alone. That even when we are physically alone, we're not alone. And when we can introduce this into our lives, what we've learned today, that's going to help tremendously. Is that enough? Well, it depends on who the person is and what their capacity is. But that's important that we should, we got to introduce this into our lives. Joachim. Can we say that love is also to serve Hashem? We serve, connect, and work Hashem by loving others. Absolutely. Love is, you see, service means service. Servitude, submission. That's the idea of the left side. That's the idea of gvura. That's the idea of fear. That's the idea of the left. The right is chesed, kindness. And that is, it's we breathe in and we breathe out. I extend myself and I refrain myself. Extending myself is an act of love that is prompted by love to do an act of loving kindness. Refrain myself is hold myself back. That's an act of respect. That's an act of making space for you. 2 different movements, and therefore we confuse them. We confuse the ideas, and we need to appreciate that there are different ideas here that complement each other. They're not meant to be against each other. They're to complement. By the way, try just breathing out and don't breathe in. It ain't gonna work. So try just having love and not having respect and fear and awe. It ain't gonna work. You need both. I hope that was clear. Okay. Tim, Susan, and okay, I got them all, I think. Davida, am I doing okay over here? Danielle, should B'nai Noach want to serve Hashem in the ways that they can, or perhaps in the ways... No, there's also this concept for B'nai Noach, absolutely. Danielle, I don't desire to serve the creator of the universe in more ways. Yeah. Okay, I don't know what you mean by that. Like if you're not Jewish, then you don't need talus and tefillin. You don't need this. If you're not Jewish, then you have the 7 Noahide laws, and some of these concepts can still be incorporated in different ways. Absolutely. Beautiful, beautiful. If you can share with me, folks, on Facebook, I know now that would be amazing. John, Just to get back
Yes,
to
sir.
what we mentioned. So the again the talus comes first because all encompassing comes first, and then inwardness comes after that. And that's the order of things, and that's how we make things happen. Is that
As a personal note, which I hope is relevant here, I don't live in the world as a frum person. I've become okay with that. I understand that the yesh aspect of me, the created aspect of me, the manifest aspect of me has a certain set of constraints, and so I don't wear the talit katan. But now that you have clarified for me from your perspective and from your interpretation of the Tanya's words, or the Alter Rebbe's words in general, I can imagine what life would be like if I wore the Talit Katan, and if I laid tefillin more often. So you have reminded me of what I knew, but had forgotten that the key to the tefillin is the binding of the seichel with the lev, the head with the heart.
Right. Excellent.
And that if you do it every day, religiously, so to speak, then it's a natural thing.
Right.
Or it's second nature, shall we say, because you're
Right.
not born with tefillin. And if you wear the talit katan, it can feel like it's close to the body. It isn't. It's enveloping, shall we say?
Right.
So I can imagine myself into the body of a frum and the life of a frum person, and so that allows me to connect to the underlying thinking that I could before we had this conversation. So thank you.
All right, thank you, John. All right, I know now that. Who can share with me? I'm looking over here. Looking on Facebook. Batya. Okay. Go ahead, Batya.
I wanted to say I know now that personally, I need to be more mindful and aware of who I am when I'm alone, even when no one else is around, or whether it be my husband or friends or family. I need to be more mindful of my thoughts and my actions and of who I am, literally, when I'm alone.
Or as we explained, that you're not alone.
Right. Well,
you're not alone.
That is the point.
Right. That you're not alone. Exactly. As Irma says from St. Martin, I know now that when the presence of God is there, the likeliness of doing the right thing at that moment is greater. The fear of God causes submission to Him in love and in servitude. Thank you. Very well said, Irma, as always. Okay, James. Oh, sorry. Who was?
Go ahead, Rabbi.
Okay. James, how do we know we're doing the right with tefillin besides the commandment that we're doing right in this isolation, since we do works and have faith, but we're not the person, and yes, God is God of thought. And I'm not exactly certain what you're saying, James, but I'm going to try to understand from what you said. First of all, in the moment that you're putting on the tefillin, for example, or any mitzvah that you're doing, women lighting Shabbat candles, Shabbos candles, in that moment is when we're talking about having that meditation that you will then are literally bound up, and it will have an effect on you in an eternal manner, that act, through your awareness, through your mindfulness, through your love and awe that you have in that moment. Even if after that moment, you're not going to be so wonderful. even later that day, you're going to do things that are not right. It doesn't take away from the end in itself that every mitzvah has. And don't forget that sometimes we're not going to be mindful. I know myself, I'm not always mindful and completely aware. Yet, the act itself is an end in itself. And as we explained previously, that when we will be mindful at some point, it kind of lifts and upgrades everything else when we were kind of not fully engaged, which is a beautiful idea. Okay, so that's James. Daisy. Did I miss Daisy over here? Ooh, Daisy, my thoughts, and she doesn't feel alone, even though she lost her husband. May God bless you, and his presence, your husband's presence, and of course God's presence should always be with you. Okay. All right, folks. I have to run. I would like to continue the conversation, but we'll have to do it tomorrow. Tomorrow is another day, and we will continue our conversation and our learning and our conversation together. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you for Chabad Zichron Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Thank you for joining. Please share the Alter Rebbe's teachings with others. That would be great. Vilma.
Thank you, Rabbi. We're here 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. I learned a lot today. And there is a difference between loneliness and solitude. I think solitude brings a lot of inner effort and work, and it's comforting. Loneliness is some other perception that, isn't really true. Like you said, God's always there, and we're always connected, not just to him, but to each other.
Right.
Beautiful.
I wish you all well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Thank you. Beautifully said.